Everything leaves a trace. Nothing is random. Not even the end that seemed inevitable. Not even the beginning that appeared out of nowhere. Not even the cycles that return, always with a new name, but with the same outcome. You call it coincidence or destiny. But the real name for this is effect. There is a structure operating behind the scenes of your life. It doesn't depend on luck, logic, or intention. It simply gives back, with precision, the frequency you emitted. Reality doesn't listen to what you wish for. It returns what you sustain, with or without awareness. That's why certain repetitions happen at the exact moment you believed you were moving forward. That's why, even after so many efforts to change, everything comes back, as if nothing had truly transformed. The cause is still active, and until it is rewritten, the universe will keep mirroring the same pattern. In this video, you will understand how this invisible mechanism shapes your destiny and how to transform it at the root with presence and precision. The field is already responding, not to what you say you want, but with the exactness of what you believed for the longest time, even in silence. And that is exactly where the anguish lies, the one almost no one can explain. You change habits, change environments, redo plans, make new decisions dressed in courage. But somehow, the script insists on repeating itself. Disguised, yes, with different characters, refreshed settings. But the ending is eerily familiar. It's as if the world were stuck in a subtle loop, and you, condemned to walk in circles within yourself. You want to break free. You want to move forward. And, for a while, you even believe you have. But something along the way returns. A specific feeling, an emotional pattern, a kind of emptiness that shouldn't be there anymore. And then the hardest thought to swallow appears. Did nothing I did really work? This doubt isn't rational. It's felt, like an internal crack between what you expected to reap and what actually came back, like an echo, like a reminder, as if life was saying, you planted here too. You just didn't notice. It's painful because no one wants to believe they're creating what they most want to avoid. But it's precisely at this point that many give up. And they don't give up because they're weak, but because they're tired of repeating. The effort doesn't disappear. The intention doesn't die. But hope becomes blurrier with each repetition, as if the universe was silent, or worse, indifferent. But it isn't. It's just waiting for you to look in the right place. Because most are trying to put out the fire through the smoke, fixing effects, but ignoring the origin. And as long as that origin isn't brought to light with truth, the cycle continues. Not out of cruelty, but because that's the only way the universe knows how to teach, by bringing back what still vibrates. It doesn't return as punishment. It returns as coherence. And coherence, at this level, is the fairest form of evolution. What repeats isn't punishing you, it's revealing you. But the mind, still conditioned to separate spirituality from structure, can't see this as law. It wants to believe in luck, or misfortune, or destiny. But it doesn't accept that there is a system, a silent vibrational system that never misses its path. A subtle mechanism that turns every sustained intention into a visible consequence. This system has a name, and it's much older than any modern theory about behavior. It is one of the Hermetic laws, and perhaps one of the most misunderstood. The law of cause and effect. It states that nothing happens by chance, that everything is generated by something, and that absolutely every lived experience is the result of a previous cause. Even if you don't remember it, here we're not talking about blame, we're talking about architecture. Because the universe doesn't decide what will happen to you. It simply executes, with precision, what has been vibrationally authorized. That includes what you didn't consciously choose. That inherited belief, that repressed emotion, that repetition that became a pattern. All of that is cause, and every cause, sooner or later, finds its form. It's as if each choice, even the non-choice, left a trace. An energetic signature that remains active until it is redefined. And what isn't redefined returns. But it doesn't return as a mistake. It returns as a chance to restart the process from another place, with more presence, with more clarity, with more alignment. This law, far from being punitive, is liberating, because it shows that nothing is loose. Nothing is pure chaos. There is an invisible thread that connects your inner states to the realities you live externally. Understanding this changes everything, because you stop being a victim of the scene and begin to see the screenwriter hidden behind the mirror. It doesn't matter if the cause was planted a decade ago. It remains active as long as your frequency continues to sustain it. But the moment the vibration changes, the effect must reorganize itself. Because effect cannot survive a cause that no longer pulses. And when you understand this, you realize that reality isn't confronting you, it's merely giving back what you've authorized to vibrate. And what vibrates leaves marks, even when you don't see it, even when you forget. The ancients not only knew this, they wrote about it, not with ink, but with symbols, not on paper, but in the layers that connect the visible to what is still in gestation. Among them, one name stood out, Thoth. Called by the Egyptians the scribe of the gods, Thoth was not just a god. He was a living archetype of the intelligence that records everything, the consciousness that observes what is being emitted and organizes the effects into form. He represented the point where spirituality and logic meet, the hidden mathematics behind karma, the geometry that turns frequency into destiny. In Hermetic tradition, he is the one who sees what the eyes do not, the one who writes with vibration, and who reads not what was said, but what was sustained, because the universe doesn't respond to the surface. It responds to what persists, to what pulses even when the mouth falls silent. Thoth is the symbol of this wisdom. He observes and records, as if every thought, every emotion, every intention left a subtle trace on the fabric of reality. And when those traces accumulate, they become a path, an invisible track that leads to the reunion with what was once emitted. But Thoth is not a judge. He doesn't punish. He merely maintains order. And order in this plane is not moral. It is vibrational. The writing of Thoth doesn't judge what you vibrate. It simply returns as a mirror, as a cycle, as synchronicity. That's why certain experiences return at the right time, at the exact hour, with the exact strength to show you what is still active. Not because the universe wants to hurt you, but because there is wisdom in repetition. And Thoth is the guardian of this hidden pedagogy, that every effect is merely the ritual manifestation of a cause that is still alive. To understand this archetype is not just to dive into mythology. It's to recognize that there is an intelligence accompanying every vibration you maintain, and that everything not consciously redefined will be recorded, and sooner or later returned, not as punishment, but as opportunity. Opportunity to review, to rewrite, to realign. Because where there is a record, there is also the possibility of a new signature. And the scribe doesn't close cycles. He waits until the creator decides to write again. But starting a new cycle isn't just a matter of changing the words. It's about altering the vibration that shapes the writing. And that doesn't happen in a rush. It happens when you stop acting on impulse and start listening to what is being emitted behind your choices. Because the true cause is rarely obvious. It hides in the details of behavior, in the justification you keep repeating, in the emotion you rationalize, in the kind of person you keep attracting, even after you've supposedly moved on. The mind tries to solve things on the visible plane, but what generates the effect lies beneath the surface. It's like a tree. You can cut the branches as many times as you want, but as long as the root is the same, the fruits will keep coming from the same code. This code is vibrational, and it only changes when you alter the pattern that sustains it. But beware, this is not about forcing positivity, repeating affirmations, or making promises to the universe. It's about presence, about going one level deeper in your perception, and beginning to recognize what's really behind your active frequency. Maybe you say you want abundance, but you vibrate lack every time you talk about money. Maybe you ask for love, but you vibrate distrust the moment someone gets close. Maybe you desire peace, but you vibrate control every time you lose the script. That's why the universe responds, and you think it's silent. In truth, it's listening exactly to what you don't realize you're saying. Because vibration isn't what you think. It's what you emanate when you're not trying to appear as anything. And this is where the power of deep observation comes in. To observe, not to judge, but to decode. Cause is not a sentence. It is merely an active frequency. And everything that is active can be adjusted. But you must be willing to enter the field where that information vibrates. And that field is not logical. It is sensory. It is energetic. It is emotional. That's why the invitation here is practical. Simple, yet deep. Over the next few days, instead of asking why is this happening to me, change the question to what is this situation trying to show me about what still vibrates in me? This question doesn't seek blame. It seeks clarity. Clarity of cause. Clarity of omission. Clarity of inner narrative. Because sometimes what is causing the effect is a story you're telling without realizing it. I always end up alone. No one understands me. Life is hard for me. These phrases are not just thoughts. They are vibrational scripts silently operating as commands. And as long as those commands are not updated, the field will keep obeying. So here's a simple yet powerful realignment practice. Step 1. Be silent for 5 minutes with no external stimulus. Step 2. Feel what is pulsing without trying to change anything. Step 3. Ask, what is active in me right now that might be creating this reality? Step 4. Name it with courage, without masks. Step 5. Breathe into it, embrace it, and say, I see you, I acknowledge you, and I choose to vibrate something new. This practice isn't magic. It is a vibrational technique based on presence. And the more you do it, the more you'll realize that the universe doesn't need promises. It only needs coherence. Coherence between what you think, feel, and vibrate. Coherence between what you desire and the internal state from which that desire comes. You may want a new reality, but it only manifests when your vibration stops shouting the old code. And that doesn't happen overnight, but it happens the very moment you become lucid about what you're sustaining. Because the cause, when exposed to the light of consciousness, loses its strength, and a new script begins to write itself, not through words, but through presence. From that point on, the effects no longer follow the same predictability. Reality, once rigid and repetitive, begins to respond with more subtlety. Coincidences increase, resistance decreases, and the paths that once seemed blocked begin to give way. But it's not because the world out there has changed. It's because what vibrates from within is no longer emitting the old command. You stop attracting what hurts, not because you've become untouchable, but because pain is no longer familiar. You stop reliving certain scenes, not because you've learned to control the script, but because you've stopped feeding old roles. Everything begins to align, not as a miracle, but as a response. This is where the law of cause and effect reveals itself as a tool for creation. Because it's not just meant to explain the past, it is meant, above all, to guide the present. You begin to observe more than you react, to feel more than you demand, to choose not in haste, but with vibrational coherence. And choices made from that consciousness are not just decisions, they are seeds. Seeds planted with presence, intention, and clarity that will sprout at the right time, in the right setting, with the right form. But this requires a new kind of intelligence, the kind that notices, in each moment, what is being emitted. Even before acting, this intelligence is not mental, it is energetic. It is the ability to sense the field before form manifests. You enter a conversation and you feel whether to open up or protect. You look at an invitation and perceive whether it's expansion or distraction. You come across an opportunity and already know whether it's truth or ego. Everything speaks, everything communicates, everything vibrates, and now you listen, because you're no longer trying to change the effects, you're tending to the cause. You're clearing what weighs you down, you're refining what you project. You're choosing with your body and not with urgency. That's when life becomes lighter, not because everything gets easy, but because now there is direction. And where there is direction, reality stops repeating and starts responding, because everything you've lived until now wasn't punishment, it was instruction. Every cycle that repeated, every person who mirrored your shadows, every door that closed just when you most wanted it to open, all of it was speaking, all of it was teaching. You weren't being ignored by the universe, you were being calibrated by it. The law of cause and effect didn't come to imprison you in consequences. It came to show you that as long as you remain unaware of what you vibrate, what you repeat, what you feed, the answers will stay the same, even if the question changes form. But now you know. Now you can consciously choose what you wish to sustain, and that changes everything. Because when you understand that every effect is a direct reflection of an active frequency, you begin to realize that destiny is not a straight line imposed from the outside. It is a moldable living road, written with gestures, intentions, emotions, often more than with words. It's at this point that knowledge becomes wisdom, and spirituality ceases to be theory, to become a practice of existence. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not things that disturb us, but how we react to them." And this teaching echoes directly at the heart of the law of cause and effect. Because when you change your reaction, you change your vibration. And when vibration changes, reality responds. This is true spiritual responsibility, to take ownership of your field, and to create from it with awareness, with intention, with truth. You can keep feeding what you've always fed, or from now on, you can become the new cause of an entirely new reality. In the end, life isn't testing you. It's simply asking, are you ready to vibrate differently? And when the answer is yes, the entire world realigns, because everything leaves a trace, and yours has already begun to carve a new path. If this content resonated with you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. It reinforces your expansion of consciousness. In the comments, write, "I am the origin of the reality I choose to live." Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that all change starts from within. And click on the screen to watch another video from our series on the 7 Hermetic laws. If you haven't seen it yet, don't waste time and check out what we've prepared for you about how each law works. Remember, when you change the cause, the effect has no choice. It must obey.